Welcome back to Hiring Humans. Today, we spoke to Radina Nedyakova, whose career in HR has spanned companies like LinkedIn, Airbnb, and a variety of startups. During that time, she's hired everyone from fresh graduates to senior executives. In particular, we really tried to talk a lot about what you should know as someone looking for a job these days, how to use LinkedIn more effectively, what really stands out in a resume for an experienced hire like Radina, and a lot of kind of touching on great tips on how you can stand out as a candidate and get a great job. Thanks so much for joining us on the fourth episode of Hiring Humans. I'm glad you took Vesi's invitation to get in with us.
Thank you so much, Eric.
So looking at your kind of resume here, looking at your background, I had a lot of questions. It was kind of hard to narrow it down, but I wanted to start with some kind of more basic things, and then we can get into a little more details about more specifically your career. So first, just how have resumes factored into your thinking about hiring and talent acquisition?
Yeah, and that's a valid question still. I believe that that's the first impression you make always. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, for me still, as a recruiter who has been hiring for a variety of roles, sales, customer support, marketing, finance, etc., I still feel that the resume has quite strong weight when it comes to understanding what the person has done, what they have achieved in their career and in their personal life, and also what is important for them. So a lot of the times they would have a summary where they would talk about their expertise, their skills, everything that they have achieved or obtained in terms of certification. So it's still a good mirror, a reflection of their career so far. I am a fan of a bit more flexible, more dynamic resumes, but that again, it really depends on the type of person, depends on the type of role that you're applying for. So
that's definitely something we believe in, that you can't just say like this type of resume is perfect for everyone, because
exactly,
as we see right here, hirers are humans and all of you have your own opinions. Then speaking of opinions, then, is there something you really just love in a resume and something like you just hate, that you just can't stand on a personal level?
Fair enough. What I really love is someone who has put an effort. So there are no grammar or punctual mistakes. It's a very clear, comprehensive format as well. It's exactly the same font everywhere. What I would prefer also to have, let's say, logos of the companies or links to their portfolio, their LinkedIn profile, something slightly more dynamic than just the standard text. What I wouldn't say I hate, but I would flag it as a bad practice, is that still people put from different countries put photos that are not really professional, or that have been done in a with a bad shade, or there is a shadow, or let's say their email address is hopsypopsy@gmail.com, which I completely understand. We were all kids, and I do have my kids kind of emails that I still keep, but you can put your name. If the name is more repetitive, you can add a number or something else. I think it's, if you're trying to create a professional image, a brand for yourself, it should be all standardized. So that's something that I usually flag to candidates, or a lot of spelling, grammar mistakes. Obviously, English is not my first language, so I completely understand, but you have to proofread everything before sending it to the company.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I think I've noticed a lot of those same things. I mean, I and we, the team, have been writing about resumes, obviously, for many years. And we're continuously writing about things like the header and, just the little part where you put maybe an email and phone number. And it always feels a bit silly, like, oh, but that's so obvious. But I think you made a good point there. It's still a place where plenty of people make really easily, I guess, avoided mistakes.
Yes, correct.
Oh, great. So last question then on that. How has that kind of evolved at all over your career? I mean, you've been doing this for a number of years, and have you seen resumes change? Have your kind of opinions on resumes changed over the last couple of years?
Absolutely. I think obviously coming from Eastern Europe, there used to be a one standardized format called the European CV format that was very much dominant. It was dominating the Eastern European market. However, what I have seen in the past few years, and maybe because I am recruiting in the tech world, I see a lot more colorful, a lot more dynamic paced interviews. I see a lot more figures, a lot, even emoticons. I've seen a lot. I've seen
Yeah.
different even ways of formulating the resume, like for example, like a path, or you have different types of structures, different diagrams. So you express yourself in a much more creative way than, let's say, how it was 10 years ago when I started in recruitment and in HR in general. I see that as a good sign. I think it's important to express who you are, your individual self, versus replicating the good old type of resumes, what everyone does. And it's very similar with the cover letter as well. I feel that both have evolved. I do read both, and for me it's important to see not only the professional behind it, but also the person. So people tend to put more interests, more hobbies. If they have been, let's say, in a music band or something else that, let's say, 10 years ago, they wouldn't even think about focusing on that.
Yeah, that's been something that I know we've pushed, and I've really pushed a lot, is that, you know, there's so many aspects of your experience that don't seem to typically fit on a resume, but you can actually show things otherwise. And I know here at Enhansive, we've really believed that this can be a tool to make resumes kind of, I guess, a tool for more inclusivity, right? That there are people from more
Precisely.
disadvantaged backgrounds and things like this that don't have the more typical experience. And if we can make resumes more flexible, then they can be a tool for giving those people access to jobs that they could very well be super qualified for, but just can't show it traditionally.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And that should be the concept, both from the candidate perspective and also the company or the recruiter or the future employer or the agency. They should be much more open-minded and not to pigeonhole themselves. Okay, this is the standard. We should follow only this type of resumes.
Yeah, that's also been something, you know, I've had conversations with people who sent a less traditional resume and got, you know, a harsh or negative reaction and say,
Mm.
oh, this is a really bad thing. And from my perspective, it might be, but it could also very well be a blessing in disguise, because my thinking is, if a company just wants to outright reject you simply because, you know, you tried to represent your experience in an unconventional way, then that says a lot about that company and their approach to a lot more than just hiring.
Precisely. I agree. I agree. I think everyone should be given a fair chance. I completely understand the recruiter point that you have limited amount of time to review profiles and you're looking for specific skills in the first 3 to 5 seconds. However, I think we should encourage people to express themselves, and we should tolerate the fact that they're different and there are different ways, as you mentioned, to portray your experience and portray your personality. I think that should be motivated and encouraged by everyone.
Oh, awesome. So, you know, you touched on all the various types of roles that you've hired for, and I want to kind of dive into that a little bit and ask if you have maybe different criteria or different advice or just different thinking on a variety of roles. In particular, I guess, kind of technical versus non-technical hires.
hmm Absolutely. I would say what I try to do is to create much more simple approach and simple guidelines to all of my candidates. I would say I wouldn't have a huge diversification between tech roles and non-tech roles. I'd say you always have to be prepared. First and foremost, if you haven't had phone interview experience, because 100% of our interviews are over the phone or through VC or through Skype, if you haven't done that before, practice, practice, practice. Make sure you know everything about the company or the role you're applying for, or at least you can back up your motivation. Because no matter who you're talking to from the company side or the agency, they will probe on this specific knowledge or perception of the company. Doing the extra mile, putting yourself into the shoes of the person, of the role that you are applying for. So just a very simple example, customer experience specialist with Spanish. If you put yourself into the shoes of this person from tomorrow, how would you set up yourself for success your first 30, 60, 90 days? I would strongly encourage people to A, make sure they're ready to be on the phone, they feel confident. B, they make their research in terms of the company and the role. C, they put themselves into the shoes of this person and think outside of the box. Think not only, oh, I can contribute with my positivism, or I can be very creative. think about what you can actually bring from a tangible skills, results, attitude perspective in this role, in this company. So I try to not to complicate, because the interview process could be complicated anyway. So I try to give these simple tips to each and every candidate, regardless of the level, regardless of the role, because I honestly believe that these are the key skills or key preparation that you should show on an interview.
I totally love that. I mean, for many, many years, I've taught writing and taught public speaking and things. And I thought you touched on what I've seen as one of the most fundamental bits of advice for whether you're giving a speech, whether you're writing a paper, or whether you're creating a resume, is to always, always think about the person on the receiving end and the audience. Because I always see one of the kind of cardinal sins of resumes and things is a resume that it's clear that this was created by a person for that person. It's like, I made this so I can feel good about myself. And, feeling good about yourself is wonderful. But, when you're on the receiving end and reading it, you're like, okay, that's great, person. But, I'm right here. So I'm really glad you touched on that. That's, to me, that's like the biggest overarching piece of advice I've kind of noticed, that a lot of people just fail to do that simple thing of put themselves in someone else's shoes.
Great.
So you worked for LinkedIn in the past, and obviously you use LinkedIn plenty in your work. So I'm curious kind of how you see the role of LinkedIn in hiring evolving over time, and from there, how you use it today.
Of course. I am probably one of the earlier adopters when I was still in Bulgaria, and the huge impact that LinkedIn has had both in the candidate's life, in the companies, in the educational institutions, is absolutely tremendous. And yes, indeed, I had the privilege to work with them for nearly 4 years and see the scale from a company, from services perspective, the huge social impact that they have on economies, on countries, the fact that they became a total leader on the market. They provide so many different options. So it's the LinkedIn Talent Solutions, Learning Solutions, Sales, Marketing, etc. I feel from recruitment standpoint, how it evolved, it became really the number one source for everyone to connect. First and foremost, this is a bridge between different professionals worldwide. Second, it is a content tool. It is the case that you want to share with your professional audience professional material. You want to engage with this audience. You want to become social selling champion. Then the third piece is finding jobs and publishing jobs, and how you tailor the message to attract the right people. They have a phenomenal tool now called Talent Insights, which is incredibly helpful for me in my day-to-day role to understand, okay, where the potential talent thrives, in which countries I could source effectively and I can get stronger engagement. It's helping you to also customize a message, the emails, in order to attract the right individual. And it's not just sending a blurb to 500 people. I don't believe in that approach. I know that there are different bots and tools that help you do that from a reach perspective, but what I believe in is that relationships matter through LinkedIn a lot. And if you know how to use it properly, it becomes a very powerful tool for your online professional brand.
Okay, so what's your kind of advice for maybe someone starting off their career these days? They're getting into the workplace. Maybe they've just got their first job, and they hear like, okay, I guess I should create a LinkedIn profile. What should be even just their mindset going into that platform and starting to use it?
And that's a great question, because the funny thing is that the youngest person on LinkedIn is at the age of 15. So it's not the case that you have to be looking for a job, or you have to be a certain type of professional. Let's say if you're a doctor, you don't need LinkedIn. No, it's actually much broader tool. As I mentioned, it's the case that you can really leverage it for so many different things. It's not only when you're looking for a job. But to your question, if someone is just starting, I would recommend keep it up to date. That's the main thing. Keep the engagement going. Make sure that you check it. If you don't want to check it every single day, that's completely fine. But make sure you're relevant. Put a professional photo, engage with people, put some content about yourself, start participating in different groups, start following different influencers or different companies that you're interested in. I would say for even for students or for people who are looking for a career change, or even people who are retiring. You can find a lot of advices there, a lot of pro bono consultancy that could happen virtually in minutes. You can connect with someone on the other side of the pond, and you can get fantastic advice, career advice from them. I've heard stories that people found their co-founders or their CEOs that way by just posting a message in their network. So my best advice is really approach it with an open mind and be proactive, be very proactive. That's how I found my role at LinkedIn. That's how I helped other people find their desired jobs. So I think you should really have variety of ideas in your mind in order to get the best out of LinkedIn.
Okay, that's really interesting because, full disclosure, I think I've been someone for a long time that just every once in a while goes in, updates their profile, checks on messages, but just seen it as a very kind of side thing. But, it's been interesting over the last year. I think our team has really discovered the power of LinkedIn groups, and that that they're a bit more exclusive. They're a bit tighter knit than what you'll find on, say, Facebook, and that really makes a difference, and people tend to be a little more open, a little more, helpful and ready to sort of jump in, and you don't get all the negative sides of a lot of Facebook groups where just a single troll or someone can get in there and really cause a ruckus.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree that it's much bigger than just the interaction from a B2C perspective. I think the groups is a great way to raise awareness. If you have your company and your company group, I think you can empower people to start a discussion, and people want to be heard. People want to share their opinion. We're talking about professional environment, and I'm glad that you made this comparison with Facebook, because yes, Facebook does have professional side as well, and it's helping advertisers too. However, the audience and the focus of these two social networks are completely different. So they're not technically competitors. I remember even Reid Hoffman, when he was visiting the office in Dublin, he was also saying, I started this as a bridge between professionals to raise the awareness and to make sure that people are building connections.
Yeah, great. So one last very specific LinkedIn question that this one actually is just purely coming from me, but I'm going to assume a lot of other people have this. Just what's your advice? So, I get tons of LinkedIn connection requests from people I don't know. And what do you say? Do you accept those just because, like, the bigger your kind of network, the better? Or is it, no, your network should be more curated? What do you think?
That's the $1 million question. And I've been asked quite a few times the same question. And I wouldn't say one size fits all. I'd say it really, really depends what the purpose of the connection is. I always would tolerate person who actually has put a sentence or two to introduce themselves or to share why they want to get in touch. Absolutely. I will give them advantage, definitely, versus people who just add me because they feel my profile is interesting or they're looking for jobs. I'd say be very selective. I don't think the more is the better. I don't think having thousands of connections from industries or from areas that have nothing to do with you is beneficial. I'd say I would rather have less connections, but I will have meaningful discussions with them. So my advice would be definitely with a pinch of salt. Obviously, there is a reason why the person has decided to send you a request. However, if you feel that you can't contribute in any shape or form, they can't contribute to your life or your career in any shape or form, and it's just another connection request, I wouldn't advise connecting. It doesn't make any sense.
Great. All right. Thanks. I will take that into consideration. So getting back to kind of questions about technical talent. Now, you've hired technical talent at a variety of companies, but particularly I noticed at Airbnb. And one of the questions we always, we think about a lot here about when it comes to hiring technical talent is, a lot of people come to us and say, I'm really worried I don't have the exact skill set that's being asked for in this job. And, you read a lot about companies saying, okay, we care more about your kind of culture and your attitude and things because skills can be learned. How do you balance those things? So, just having the raw, the list of exact skills required relative to someone who really seems to have be a great culture fit.
Yeah, I tend to avoid the term culture fit nowadays because I think it brings a different connotation than
Yeah.
when it started, let's say 4 or 5 years ago when people started talking about cultural interviews. I'd say for me as a recruiter, obviously I do have a set of mandatory skills and a set of additional skills that are
Mhm.
nice to have, that we have agreed with the hiring manager and the interviewing panel in advance before advertising a specific role. So
So
I
quickly,
have an
are those
idea.
on the
Mhm.
job offer? Does the job offer distinguish between those?
Yes, the job description a lot of the times would have what is a must or what is a
Mhm.
very strong plus to have, and then obviously the lower it goes on the list, these are skills that are nice to have. Some job descriptions would actually have the must-haves and the desirable skills separately, but it
Mhm.
really depends on what the
Yeah.
structure of your job description is. However, the best way, and I think the most visibility you provide, the better. So I feel when I am interviewing candidates, I make sure to understand, okay, yes, they might not be 100% matched to what we're looking for, but do they have the potential? Are they coachable? Is this something that we can teach them and they can ramp up quickly? If the hiring manager is okay with certain stuff missing, we can absolutely give the benefit of doubt and move forward. However, it again depends on the level of the position, the sense of urgency, and other factors that unfortunately cannot be always revealed to each and every candidate. That's the reality. So I would always look for potential and for the existing skills as well.
Mhm.
If I believe based on the examples, based on how the conversation went, based on the communication skills, that this person is indeed coachable and is eager to learn and to speed up in their process here, I would definitely move to the next round. But if I don't see that, then I can't really justify moving forward. And it wouldn't be fair for both sides. So I prefer to be honest and give the feedback on the call versus waiting and sending them the usual rejection letter.
All right, great, very interesting.
Yeah.
So now we're also thinking about, and you've noted this before, right? That there's so much variation, and again, that's another bit of the kind of core resume advice we always give is like it depends, right? That everything is kind of specific, and it's hard to give a lot of universal advice, and it's what's important is really looking in and caring. But I was curious how you think about hiring kind of managers, even executives. I know you've got some specific executive hiring experience relative to hiring, individual contributors, kind of lower to mid-level people.
I think the first and foremost is you have to be transparent with both. You have to make sure that you understand where they're coming from and to have a set of questions that again are probing on the desired skills and competencies. I feel it's important to follow a very comprehensive, clear, and very fair structure, because if you change way too often your questions, you're not putting people under the same circumstances and the same type of evaluation. So I try to provide very standardized questions, and obviously it really depends on how the conversation would go. I'd
Yeah.
say there is, of course, difference between how you assess for a lower level individual contributor and a management role. You do focus on very different types of skills, different types of examples you're looking for as well, again, depending on the level of the role itself. However, I'd say I would expect a lot more from a manager, because my presumption would be, okay, this is a person who is already on a leadership, in a leadership position. So they should have a much more maturity, much more self-awareness. They've gone through a longer career path in comparison to, let's say, a specialist who has literally a year or two practical professional experience. So I would have more expectations towards the the more mature, more tenured professional in terms of preparation, in terms of solid examples, in terms of backing up their motivation. But that doesn't mean that I would have no expectations whatsoever from the individual contributor. I would again try to prepare them. I always send in my email invites a bit more information about the company so that they feel fully prepared and supported. And then for both, I will try to provide very clear and comprehensive feedback in the end. So what my approach is might be completely different to what other recruiters do, but I try to provide great candidate experience from A to Z, regardless of the level.
Great, thanks. And maybe to wrap up, and you touched on this a little bit in a minute ago, and it's something that I know I've thought about a lot, that I care about very deeply, and that's this kind of distinction between, and maybe the problems emerging about culture fit as an idea, and how do we distinguish between culture fit and looking to build a great company culture, which no one disagrees is an important and valuable thing, but relative to the danger of encouraging the creation of monocultures and, rejecting people because you can just say, oh, they're not a culture fit, but really that's kind of a proxy for discrimination, or this person doesn't look like us, they don't have the same interests as us. How do you think about that distinction, and how to kind of stay on the right side of that line and make sure you're using culture and personality and values like this to make the company better and not worse, arguably?
Yeah, and I feel that's a very hot topic for a lot of organizations to understand the balance. I think it's also quite sensitive topic because there isn't an objective way to measure culture. There isn't such thing. No one has invented it yet. What I would say is you always have to look at the best practices from your business, and also you have to look at the interest of both sides, of both parties, and to be as transparent as possible, and to do the right thing, to act with integrity. To give an example, how we talk about culture, I believe that if a company has decided to set up specific values that are relevant for their specific organization, this is a set of behaviors, set of perceptions that have been agreed on all levels, from the top C-level executives until the end level, that this is something that is important, and these are the main drives for the employees to achieve the mission for the company. So I'd say, if you are on the company side and you have established vision, mission, and values, I would say this has to be visible for all the potential candidates so that they can understand, okay, it's not the case that they are measuring culture fit, but they have established a set of behaviors that for them are important. For them, these are the driving behaviors. So if I embody this, then, and I provide valuable examples around them, then I should be a match for what they're looking for. Now, again, that's not the 100% truth, nor one is equal to the other. We're talking about people-to-people business. So obviously there are a lot of other factors that would exert influence. But in general, if you are a candidate, I would say, make sure you understand what that means, what the values mean for this company. Look at videos, because a lot of the times the executives do speak about why this is so crucial for their success, so that you have visibility and you have proper understanding of how you are assessed. And a recruiter that is doing the right thing would explain to you, we assess based on the criteria for the role, based on what the company needs in the future, and obviously based on the factors that exert influence on our culture, on our mission, so that we can achieve our goals. So I don't know if that's the right answer. I think it's purely based on my experience, and I think it's the right way to communicate that at every stage in the interview process.
No, I quite agree. I think it's about openness, defining culture in terms of examples. I've really been a proponent for that don't just say like, we believe in X, but we believe that in this type of hypothetical situation, it'd be best to do this thing for this reason. And that's what makes kind of culture and values much more real and kind of quantifiable if possible. Well, anyway, so I want to thank you so much. This has been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. And any final words?
No, really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to partner again, and wish you best of luck and happy holidays.
Yeah, and happy holidays to you as well. Love the sweater.
Yes, we are having Christmas sweater day today, so I am all embodying the Christmas spirit.
Great. All right. Well, ciao. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did creating it. Go ahead and subscribe or like us below. Or if you prefer, you can also check out our podcast, which is the same content, but as a podcast. So check that out in the link below. And if you really want to learn more things, you have specific questions about hiring, feel free to leave a comment or get in touch with us. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you in the next one.